I paint often quite difficult subjects, and I have been asked, how do you maintain your own mental health and navigate your own emotions through this experience? When I'm telling someone else's story, I can separate myself from that story, and it's almost like the story goes through me onto the canvas. And then when it's on the canvas, it's sort of made physical, it's made real, it's out of me. So I'm like a sort of conduit. Hi, I'm Andy Farr. I'm an artist based in Coventry. Most of my work is around storytelling, and I use painting and art to tell the story of people who often have been recovering from mental health challenges. So I started out doing narrative portraits based on my own life story after my father had died. I had a lot of unexplored feelings about him, and I needed to kind of address those. And he was bipolar, so I did a series of paintings which were exploring my experience of his condition. So this is a painting called Visitor, and it's one of the first paintings I did about my own growing up. I was about 12 at the time, and my father had just been sectioned, and this was me going to visit him in hospital. That memory of going to see him and going into the day room at the institution is one of the most vivid sort of memories I have from that time. And the memories particularly of the men in the room sort of looking back at me, but not seeing me, because they were all heavily medicated and there was this sort of nothing behind the eyes-ness to it. And that memory is still really powerful for me. And then this is our family unit, and it sort of predates the beginning of his illness, although I think the first signs of it were starting to manifest. This painting, called Carousel, I realised after he died that I felt a certain amount of guilt about maybe we could have done more to understand the euphoria, but then the crashing back to earth, which I used a carousel horse, a picture from a kind of, one of these desolate fairgrounds that's now not a fairground anymore. But that sort of captured some of the emotion to me. And then the third painting is one I painted last year, which is actually about me. I escaped from that carousel, and hopefully I'm moving forwards and leaving some of that darkness behind. I mean, I guess I've spent all my life wondering if his demons would catch up with me at some point, but they haven't. So that's a sort of more positive take on the same idea. So a lot of the people I've worked with have been through medication, have been through forms of psychotherapy, and sometimes there's still something they haven't quite addressed, and they find that having that realised into a painting can be quite cathartic. When I'm working with someone and trying to understand their story, I see myself very much as somewhere between an interpreter and a translator and a sculptor. When I did the project with the Institute of Mental Health, the first painting that I'd finished was based on a woman called Rachel who'd had birth trauma. When I sent her the image of that painting, the trepidation I felt, I thought, have I done something which resonates with her? So she said, "I'm speechless." I cried. "The colours are perfect. The me looking round the corner completely sums up that feeling of lost in a grey world, feeling frightened of everything. It's like you looked into my head and painted. It's honestly amazing." Knowing that you've actually hit the nail on the head, and also that it resonates, and that potentially it's helped her to finally, to take that final step forward away from the trauma, was really moving. I didn't do any art for about 25 years. I was in marketing and advertising. I was commuting down to London. I'd sort of reached the point where I wasn't really enjoying it. Then I happened to be really ill and lying in a hospital bed thinking, well, if I survive this, I want to do something different. So I then went down a road of doing all sorts of different types of painting, abstract, geometric, floral. Then I did an MA at Coventry University. That was the start of the journey into more narrative-based and story-based painting, which has taken me to where I am now. I do like to paint with classical music on. I find that I paint best with music which is fairly soothing but also familiar. I think there is something about the way your brain works that makes sense of that. And you need sometimes to try and turn that focused attention off and let the bigger picture side of your brain, the right hemisphere of your brain, work and give it space to have some deeper thoughts. So I guess it's almost like meditation. One of the dangers with society is we're so focused on the immediate and the short-term attention that we lose sight of the more spiritual, more deeper thinking right brain. I'm starting a PhD at Nottingham University, and I'm researching the whole area of painting portraits of trauma. Why might it be that painting someone's experience of trauma can be cathartic? And trying to understand, is that just about storytelling? Is it about the actual artwork? Is it about the metaphors that have been deployed? Is it about, for that individual, the work being made public? Because often one of the issues around trauma is that it's important to talk about it and get it out of yourself. And so the final step of actually having your story, even if it's in a more metaphorical way in an exhibition that other people see, is quite an important step for those people. So I think that's quite important, that the art isn't just in a gallery, that it's actually out in the public and that people can see it and people can use it as a way of understanding, and I can use it as a way of communicating. So one of the things that happened when I did my MA final show, and a lot of the work was around my experience of my father's bipolar disorder, and I found that lots of people were coming up to me and starting to talk about either their own personal experience or someone in their family's experience of similar issues. So it's almost like the artwork gave them permission to talk about things which they might have found more difficult. And I know there's lots of campaigns about talking about things and whatever, but art is just one of those ways of allowing people, giving permission to start having conversations. Another way of enabling people and encouraging people to talk about the experiences they face.